Uh, that first load, I stayed in Colombia as insurance that they give.
Oh, I read this. You were like a human hostage or collateral.
I was a hostage.
Yes.
We went around Santa Marta and Barranquilla, and we partied and had a good time. But I always had like 6 big guys around.
This was the Colombians were holding you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now how old were you?
I was in my early 30s.
In your early 30s. So you're a human hostage acting as collateral, and you're not afraid because this is just business, right? It's
and I got my partner Robbie at the other end, the guy I grew up with, a terrific guy. I knew as quick as possible he would get that load sold, paid for. Now, we had used all the down payment money for the airplanes, pilots.
Wow. Yes.
I mean, just to fuel up the plane would be like 10 grand.
Yes.
So, but he'd start collecting money right away. The customers would come with another suitcase of money and get the Colombians paid. We had an arrangement with a bank in Miami, or the Colombians had an arrangement.
Yes.
And this was really neat. After the second, I no longer agreed to stay there as a hostage, but my word was good. They knew they were going to be paid.
Yes.
And so the first time I brought money to the bank, you'd have to call the bank and ask for the vice president of the bank and tell him you're with so-and-so in Colombia and that you got a deposit for him and you're going to bring it in. And he would say, well, you have to come to the back door, which was right beside the dumpster in the rear parking lot.
Yes.
And it was a blank door, not even marked. And you'd go and you had a secret knock on the door. And the vice president of the bank would come open the back door, take you in, and he'd take us into this huge vault, had a big vault door on the front. And there was a conference table. And there were like people sitting at the conference table, but they all were looking down. Nobody, you give them the suitcase. Everybody used a Samsonite.
Yes.
Samsonite briefcase holds $1 million in $100 bills.
Right.
You'd say, like, I got 2 Samsonites, I got 3 Samsonites, and just take out the piles, and the vice president would put a pile in front of each of the tellers, each of the counters sitting at the table. And still they're all looking down. Nobody's looking at me because they're not supposed to.
Yes.
Of course they did, but
yeah.
Anyway, at each end of the table, there's a big glass ashtray. They're counting the money. And every now and then, pop, they throw one in the ashtray. Pop, throw another one in the ashtray. What they were doing was spotting counterfeit.
Wow.
And I think that first deposit we brought in was maybe $1.5 million. There was almost 10,000 worth of counterfeit.
Amazing.
Hundreds and 50. And we learned we would carry like an extra 10,000 into the bank or 20,000 to replace the counterfeit.
Sure. Wow.
So that the deposit would be, an even million or whatever.
Yes. Wow.
They were amazing times.
It's incredible. That's incredible. So now this went on for a few years, right? Or a few big deals.
3 years, about 2.5 years. 3 years.
Okay. What were the events that led you to getting caught? Because I know they were watching you guys, right? They knew what you were doing.
Really? No. At that point, we had determined, we were three partners. We had determined that once we made about $1 million apiece, we quit.
Okay.
And we did.
Okay.
We were out of the business for over a year
Wow.
when we got indicted. And what happened was we were not only doing airplanes, we did both.
Did both.
Colombians like boats better because they held so much more. But when somebody says they're going to give you 30,000 pounds of premium marijuana, go find a boat to meet the mothership. That convinced me to do it. I didn't really want to. Once we quit, he came to us about a year later and he said, you know, you guys did very well by my family. You paid a lot of money for the boat, kept us in business. But now he wanted to do a smuggle on his own. And their smuggle went all south, east, north, and west. Everything went wrong. They all got caught. And they all went, oh, we just work for those guys.
Oh, wow.
Them guys. That's the short version of how we got. And we didn't get caught. When the indictment came down, we had been retired for a year and a half. And all the weed we brought in had all been sold and smoked up already.
Yeah, right.
But we were charged under the Kingpin law with conspiracy charges. And with conspiracy charges, you really don't have to prove very much.
That's conspiracy charges?
Yeah. They say you conspired with you. One thought. And once you have a conspiracy charge, you're permitted to use hearsay in court.
Wow.
And that makes all the difference in the world. Almost every major case in the United States today has a conspiracy charge that they can use he said and she said. You can use, somebody can get up and say, well, he told me this, and he told me that. The way the law was originally written, that wasn't supposed to happen. You had to be able to prove an event. Once there was a conspiracy charge, they can then use hearsay and say, your dad called me up and said to drop 10 bales at this house over here. Now, if there's any record of a phone call between your house and his house, that's enough to
That's enough.
conspiracy.
Wow.
And that's how I was convicted of the first kingpin charges for marijuana. That was never meant to be used for pot. The kingpin laws were written for the French Connection.
Sure.
The heroin.
Yeah.
So being hit with a kingpin charge means weren't getting out on parole.
Wow.
Normally, what I was doing, importing weed into Miami, the average sentence pre-Black Tuna days was 5 years. And it was parolable. You did maybe 25 months, 30 months at the most. And as long as you didn't kill anybody while you were in prison, you were paroled. We always thought that was the worst we were facing.
Yeah.
None of us had a criminal record. We figured we'd get either 3 or 5 years if we ever got caught. And maybe some of that would be suspended.
Yeah.
Because that's the way they used to treat it. But not after Jimmy Carter and Reagan. Reagan really started what became the drug war. And for the first time, they charged us with the Kingpin statute and a couple of RICO charges. Nobody thought it would stick because that was just so absurd for marijuana. but it did stick. And I ended up with a 64-year non-parolable sentence. But back in those days, while the parole laws were still in effect, you could earn a third of your sentence in good time. And you used to get that automatically. So if you went in with 30 years, your sentence was computed for 20 years.